Hey everyone, it's Jon Macaskill here, and I wanted to welcome you to another episode of the Men Talking Mindfulness show. And last week's episode with Elise Michaels, that was actually our official end of season 8. But Will and I are recording. We're gonna record some short audio on the shows to kind of fill the gap between seasons. And I know what you're wondering right now. You're wondering, what is all that noise in the background? Well, I'm actually recording from outside at my parents' home in Ruston, Louisiana. I'll talk about that here in a few seconds, but just wanted to get that out of the way, what that noise is. I'm recording from outside in nature. Anyway, Will and I, we're going to record some kind of short, sweet, audio-only shows, kind of to fill the gap between the seasons. And it's really something that we want to keep the momentum going, but we also want to take a break, right? We want to practice what we preach, taking those breaks, resetting our bodies and our minds. But we want to give you something short to keep you connected to our community between seasons. So here's the short and sweet episode. And hopefully it's something that you can listen to, on your commute. So today I'm flying solo. I'm here without Will, and today I'm going to discuss, or I guess more specifically talk about, since there's really nobody to discuss this with. So I'll be talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is connection with and through nature, hence my sitting out here recording this episode from outside my parents' house, again, here in Ruston, Louisiana. And I'm sitting here in this beautiful, lush green forest where they live. I'm in their backyard. I'm watching the green leaves kind of gently blowing in the wind, and I'm listening to the birds chirping. You may be able to hear them, and I can feel the warm sun on my skin. Although really being from Colorado, I better record this quickly as the sun and humidity here in Louisiana are just a tad different from what I experience in Colorado. I've gotten soft living up there. Anyway, I figured it would be good to start with a few stories from my own life. So I go back really to my high school days, and even prior to that, I used to spend, just like most kids back then, I would spend a lot of time outdoors, playing in the woods. My brother and I built forts out there, getting out into nature, playing at the beach when we would travel down to the beach, and just spending all day outside or in water. You may notice some sounds that don't necessarily sound like nature. My parents' house is not too far from the road, and you can actually hear some road noises as well. So hopefully you don't pick up too much of that. But anyway, coming back to, in my youth, I spent a lot of time outdoors. And then, fast forwarding from when I was much younger to still in like high school days, I grew up running track and cross country. And during that time, I spent a great deal of my time outdoors training. So running in the forest, running on trails, running along rivers, around lakes, in the sun, in the rain, kind of all sorts of weather, and I absolutely loved it. And even when I wasn't running, I tried to spend time outdoors. I was a lifeguard at a lake. I hauled hay during the summer, which, by the way, to date, aside from being dad, I found that to be the toughest job I've ever done. I mowed yards, did some landscaping. So I was outdoors most of my youth. And then as an adult, as you may know, I'm a retired Navy SEAL. And during my time in the teams, we also spent a lot of time outdoors. Now don't get me wrong. We spent a lot of time at shooting ranges and walking through the woods with these heavy packs that were loaded with water and food and clothing, radios, batteries, and a whole ton of tactical equipment. So it wasn't like we were just out there forest bathing, which I'll talk about here shortly, but we weren't just out there forest bathing, right? But even then, in training and even when we headed out on real world operations, I loved being outdoors, and I still do. And being in that nature, being in nature, is an important part of my mindfulness practice, and it could be a part of yours. There's just something deeply calming about the great outdoors, even if it's just that small patch of green in that city park. And Will knows all too well, living in New York City, you find those green patches and how awesome they are. Okay, so what's the deal with nature and mindfulness, and why do they go together so well? They go together so well, in fact, that research has shown that spending time in nature significantly reduces our stress, our anxiety, and depression even. And here's some science for you, for you science nerds out there, and I'm one of them. And I always think of Will Ferrell and Anchorman whenever I say something like this. I don't know if you guys remember that scene, but basically he's talking about the size of the man's brain versus the woman's brain, which is completely bogus. But on the show, he says, or on the movie, he says something about it's science. Anyway, I digress. So a study from Stanford found that walking in nature reduced rumination, which is that repetitive negative thinking, compared to walking in an urban setting. And another study from the University of Essex showed that even just 5 minutes of green exercise, that's getting out, exercising outdoors, can improve your mood, and get this, not only just your mood, but your self-esteem. Pretty wild, right? Okay, so where did all this come from? Well, many cultures have long recognized the healing power of nature. The Japanese practice of that forest bathing that I mentioned before, or Shinrin-yoku, it involves immersing yourself in the forest atmosphere and has been shown to reduce stress and lower blood pressure. And then some indigenous traditions also often incorporate nature into their spiritual rituals, recognizing that it has a role in healing and in mindfulness. Now, I mentioned there are some of the benefits that are tied into being in nature, but now I want to get a little bit deeper into the specific benefits, the mental and physical health benefits. Let's talk about those. And then I want to talk about the cognitive benefits. So the mental health benefits, let's talk that first. Spending time in nature, as I mentioned before, it can help reduce that anxiety, the stress, and the depression. But it's not just about being outside, right? You can go outside and still think. You may hear my dogs, my dog, one of my dogs, and my parents' dogs here barking. Again, that's nature, right? Anyway, but it's not just about being in nature, because we could go be in nature, but we have our phones on us. We could go be in nature and start thinking about the past or thinking about the future, or worrying about either one of them, rather. And it's again, not just about being in nature, but it's about truly being present and mindful of our surroundings. So it's like I mentioned before, kind of what I feel sitting here right now. So imagine standing in a forest, the sunlight kind of coming through the leaves, the sounds of the birds chirping, and the rustle of the wind. And it's kind of like nature is art or music. And if you can take it in like that and really absorb it, that's where I've started to see some of those real mental health benefits for myself, and I've seen it in others. And then on the physical side, the physical health front, being in nature, it can lower blood pressure, improve immune function, and even speed up recovery from illness. Research from the University of Tokyo found that forest bathing boosts the immune system by increasing the count of natural killer cells, which help to fight off infection and even cancer. So that's pretty wild. I mean, if you have no other reason to get out there for that physical health side. And then I want to talk about the cognitive benefits. Nature has been shown to help improve our focus and our creativity. And when we take a break from our screens and immerse ourselves in that outside, that natural world, we can experience this uptick, this boost in mental clarity and in problem solving. Will and I and Dr. Teresa Larson, we quite often talk about motion is lotion, right? You've heard motion is lotion. It's for the body. It helps the joints. It helps the ligaments, the tendons, but it also helps the mind. It releases this cocktail of hormones that help to make you feel better. But then over and above that, getting out into nature to do that, we experience that boost of mental clarity and problem solving skills. And I'm sure you've felt something like this, those aha moments while out on a hike. Well, that's no coincidence. A study by the University of Michigan found that memory performance and attention spans improved by 20% after a walk in nature. So maybe, before you take those tests or before you go in for an interview or before you go and do something that's going to require a lot of cognitive function, maybe go out and do a walk. Rather than studying until the last second, go do a walk out in nature. So because that performance and attention span can be improved by up to 20%. So the name of this episode is Connecting with and Through Nature. And I specifically named it that because we can first connect with nature, right? That's what a lot of what I've been talking about thus far is. It's connecting with nature. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I don't have enough time to go out and just forest bathe. Well, it doesn't have to be this big, drawn-out process. I'm going to mention a couple ways to incorporate connecting with and through nature into your routine. Let's start with mindful walking, right? We all try to get some steps in. We try to walk. And we can do this, or rather we do this on our retreats, and it's awesome. It's just a very quiet, intentional walk, and as you're walking, you pay close attention to the sounds, the smells, the sights around you, the feelings, and you feel the ground beneath your feet and the air on your skin, and it's like this kind of mental mini vacation for your brain, for your body, for your nervous system, and then on top of that, you get a little bonus. You're getting your heart rate up slightly and getting those steps in. Maybe that mindful walk is not for you. Well, if that isn't for you, maybe find a quiet spot in a park or in your backyard and sit comfortably and focus on your breath. And again, focus on the sights and the sounds. And then allow those natural sounds to be an anchor to that present moment. Maybe even if you're not able to get out into real nature, maybe just get into a green area and then close your eyes and take in the sounds, and then maybe picture yourself by this flowing river, a brook, or under a tree. And that's a great way, even that, to disconnect from the chaos and reconnect with yourself. That's the piece that I want to talk about next. It's reconnecting through nature to yourself, because it's not just about connecting with the world around us, with nature, but it is also about connecting with ourselves through nature. When we do get out in nature, when we immerse ourselves in the natural world, we often find it easier to tap into our own thoughts and our own feelings. We experience the emotions that we're experiencing because we haven't shut them off. And it's almost like nature provides this space and this silence. It's kind of almost a container that we actually need to go into in order to hear our own inner thoughts, our own inner emotions. So maybe when you go out and sit in nature, you can bring a journal, and you bring them with you on those nature hikes, nature walks, the sits, and maybe take a few moments just to write down some of your observations and feelings. And this could really help you to deepen that connection with the natural world, and then over and above that connection with yourself, that mindfulness practice. And then it's also a great way to kind of go back to that journal if you want to, and kind of document those little moments of beauty that we often miss. Go back and read that journal every once in a while. And then maybe practicing some deep breathing exercises while you're observing that natural world, the natural world. Breathing in that fresh air. Let the beauty of nature fill your senses. Notice the smells, and it's kind of like hitting that reset button on your brain. So, why don't we imagine, if you can, yourself in that nature, and try this simple exercise. I want you to breathe in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4. 3, 2, 1. And hold for 4. 3, 2, 1. And do that a few times. Do that a few times as I'm talking. Breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. And I've talked about this before, and I still talk about it very often. This is box breathing. And after 4 or 5 cycles of that, you're probably going to feel the difference. Well, then getting out there and doing that in nature, that just elevates the experience that much more. So that experience connects you with nature, but it also, through nature, can help to connect yourself to yourself. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so one more quick thing about this, and then I'll wrap it up. And I also want to hear from you. So whitewater rafting, surfing, body surfing, skiing, snowboarding. I've never snowboarded, but I've skied. Downhill mountain biking. These are all active activities, right? They're active outdoor things that we can do. And being active in something that takes some pretty serious focus, right? If you lose focus, then you can hurt yourself, or you fall, or you fall out of the boat, whatever. I found that has helped me to be very present and focused on the here and now. I'm out in nature and enjoying being out in nature, but I'm also being hyper-focused, and I sometimes get into that state of flow, and I'm sure you guys have felt it. And I can't think of much else. For example, like when I'm downhill mountain biking, I can't think of much else besides the hill, the trail, my bike, and myself, like what I'm doing. Because everything else has to melt away, or you crash, you run into a tree, which I have done, and it was pretty damn scary. But anyway, everything else kind of melts away, and I'm sure you have felt something like this in the past. So I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to know how you incorporate nature into your mindfulness practice. And Will and I, would love to hear from you. And you can reach us by email. Just email team, T-E-A-M, team, at mentalkingmindfulness.com. So that's team, T-E-A-M, at mentalkingmindfulness.com. And I also forgot to mention this at the top of the show. You can find out more about what we're up to. You can see our social media, our YouTube channel, everything else, by just texting MTM, the letters MTM, to the number 33777. So 33777. If you text the letters MTM, then you're gonna get a text back, and it's gonna take you to a place where you can find out and see everything that we're up to. Because Will and I really want to create a community where we can. It's not just us talking to you; it's us all talking to one another. The community that we're working to build, and we want to learn from not just my and Will's experiences. We want to learn from you guys, and we want others who are part of this community to learn from you all too. So, please text us MTM to 33777, or email us team@mentalkingmindfulness.com. And now I'll wrap it up. Nature offers this powerful way to enhance our mindfulness practice. whether it's through mindful walking that I talked about, that sitting meditation, journaling, the breathing exercises, or doing something a little bit more active and kind of focus driven, but outdoors. There are a bunch of ways to connect with the natural world and find that peace of being out there. And remember, it's not just about connecting with the natural world, but it's also about connecting through the natural world to yourself, finding that deeper connection with ourselves. So that's all I've got. I actually talked way longer than I had planned on it. That's all I've got. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this episode inspires you to get out there, get outdoors, embrace that healing power of nature. Until next time, this is Jon Macaskill reminding you to stay mindful, stay connected with the natural world and with yourself. Thanks all. Take care.